After spending time both in Canada and Ecuador this year, I keep getting the similar question: which country is cheaper? That's not actually a great question. The better question is, what kind of life does each environment make possible? Today I want to compare Canada and Ecuador based on three financial considerations: housing, food, and transportation, because these affect everybody. Not to determine which one's better, but to understand what each environment is optimizing for. Housing is still the biggest expense for most people. That might be renting, that might be paying a mortgage. Certainly in Canada, prices for housing, especially in major markets, Vancouver and Toronto, has skyrocketed way beyond what most people can afford. Not just in terms of being able to purchase something, a house, a condo, whatever it is, but also in terms of being able to afford rent, especially for young people. The amount of money that it costs to rent a condominium in downtown Toronto, it's come off a little bit. Those prices are coming down, but it's still a huge amount of your average monthly income. Whereas down here in Ecuador, you can find a lot of different rental options. You could do an Airbnb, you could do a long-term rental, you could buy a place. That could be a property. That could be a house. It could be a condominium. There's a lot of different options to choose from. And you're not going to have the same creature comforts. If you're on the coast, it's really nice to have air conditioning. Do you need it? Some people would say yes. I've never found I needed it. If you're up in the mountains, it'd be nice to have a furnace. I've never seen a furnace anywhere in Ecuador. Not in anybody's house, like nowhere. Because in a lot of the climates, in a lot of parts of the country, you don't need AC or heat. If you have a wood stove in your place, if you're up in the mountains or in a cold zone, that'll keep you warm. And if you can open the windows and turn on a fan or two, you're going to generally be okay. So the housing down here, you're not generally going to find the same creature comforts, but you'll find a much nicer climate that is the same year round, especially in places like Cuenca, for example, hugely popular, the most popular expat city in all of South America. It's a eternal spring, they like to call it. So it's sunny and warm for the first part of the day, then it usually gets a little cloudy, might rain, cools off around 3 o'clock for the rest of the day. And that's the same year round. In which case, do you need those creature comforts? Or would you rather be outside enjoying your life instead of trying to control the climate inside your home? So if you come to a place in the global south like Ecuador, you can save a lot of money on a rental. You don't need to buy a place. You can find rentals all day long that are going to check most of the boxes, and if you have some creature comforts you want, you can find those available in city centers, places like Cuenca especially, that cater to expats. It'll cost you a little more, but you decide what's important to you. And the housing costs overall are a fraction of what they cost in Canada. That's not going to change anytime soon. So if you're a young person starting out looking and thinking, how am I going to get ahead? How am I going to be able to afford a house or a condo or rent, even in a place like Toronto or Vancouver, you could leave Canada, work remotely, and be able to make a decent living and have a good quality of housing. So for me, Ecuador is a clear winner in terms of housing costs and housing quality. Food prices have increased everywhere. That's largely as a factor of fuel prices increasing, because anything that needs to be transported, for example food, is going to go up in cost as the cost to ship it from one place to the next goes up. I think that trend will continue into the near future, sadly. I was in Canada recently. There is an enormous amount of selection and convenience, but at a much higher cost. Down here in Ecuador, I go to the markets a lot, and the food doesn't look as enticing as it does in the West, for sure. It's not as perfect. There are imperfections, sometimes bruises. Apples tend to be much smaller. Bananas are fantastic. Anything grown locally usually uses very little in terms of chemicals. But what it comes down to, more than the cost, because it's way cheaper down here to buy food, is the quality of the food and the way I feel when I'm eating food down here in Ecuador versus when I'm in Canada. Something else I noticed about food in Canada: I would eat dinner at the same time and roughly the same amount of food that I would eat for dinner down here in Ecuador. And 2 hours later, I would be ravenous. I felt like I hadn't eaten at all. Down here, I can eat dinner at 5 o'clock and I don't need to eat again until 8 o'clock the next morning. There's something about the quality of the food and the water and the air here in Ecuador that for me is much better. I know what my body feels like when it's down here and when I'm eating a good diet and exposed to sunshine, clean air, clean water, and just a much more relaxed pace of living. So while you have more convenience and a lot more options in Canada in terms of food that's available year round, down here I find the quality of the food and the taste more than anything to be much more important. And the way my body feels after being back down here for 2 weeks, it's night and day to the way it felt in Canada. Ecuador benefits from a lot of local production. There's a lot of stuff that grows here year round and things that can be imported from countries nearby. Whereas Canada, a lot of the time, food is being imported from really far away, from Mexico and further south. You're getting fresher, higher quality food that tastes fantastic. And for me, aside from it being a lot cheaper, the quality of the food is the thing that wins out down here in Ecuador. Lower food costs reduce the amount of income required to maintain your diet and lifestyle. And Ecuador is a clear winner in terms of food. Canadians depend on private vehicle ownership to get around. If you're in a major city, Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, other cities in Canada, you have options to take public transit. That could be the bus system, that could be some sort of light rail, that could be a subway, any number of combinations. So it's possible to get around. But a lot of people prefer having their own car so that they can go when they want and where they want on their own schedule. But that comes with a huge cost. You got the cost of the ownership of the vehicle, plus insurance, plus maintenance, plus fuel, which continues to go up, along with other costs associated with running a vehicle. To say nothing of parking or dealing with traffic and all of these things. Now, down here in Ecuador, a lot of expats, myself included, I don't have a vehicle. I don't have a desire to get a vehicle because I don't need one. A lot of things are very walkable, and public transit is incredibly cheap. A bus down here in PIFO is about 35 cents for me to go to the town to do some shopping and 35 cents back. So 70 cents US gives me a round trip to go shopping. The point being, you don't need to have your own vehicle down here. You're also not dealing with snow and with inclement weather. You're going to have rainy season in some parts of the country and mudslides and things like that. So there are things to consider. Again, not an apples to apples comparison. But on the whole, it's very easy to get around either by walking or using public transport. Even taxis, super inexpensive down here, very convenient. The buses run very frequently. I haven't had any major issues on buses, and I'm able to travel around the country from the coast to the mountains, to the rainforest, to the Amazon, and beyond. See everything I want to see, do all the touristy stuff I like doing, and have a great experience of life in Ecuador without having to own my own vehicle, dealing with traffic and parking, and all of the associated nuisances that go along with that. So in terms of transportation, the buses here, not as fancy or modern as the ones on the TTC, for example, in Canada, but they'll get you where you need to go, and very inexpensively and efficiently. Any money that you can save on transportation can be used in other areas of your life for more enjoyment, entertainment, cultural experiences. After comparing the numbers, my conclusion isn't that Ecuador is better than Canada. It's not exactly an apples to apples comparison. It's that each environment has trade-offs. Each environment is optimizing for a different thing. Things definitely cost less in Ecuador. And I find in terms of food, the quality is much better. In terms of housing, you're going to be sacrificing some creature comforts. And in terms of transportation, I'm using a lot more public transportation and not driving my own car down here because it's really easy to get around. So all of those reduce my cost of living significantly, which means I don't need to have as much money coming in to be living a lifestyle that's, for me, a higher quality. Fewer options, fewer conveniences, yes. So the trade-off is, do I want a higher quality of life and to be able to live more relaxed and enjoy my life and not have access to all of the creature comforts and some of the things that the West offers? For me, that's a fair trade. Canada offers stability, infrastructure, and predictability. Ecuador offers lower costs, flexibility, and the ability to live well on less. For me, the most interesting question isn't which country wins, it's how the environment changes the amount of freedom available to the average person. If you're a young person and looking around Canada thinking there is no way I'm ever going to be able to afford rent or my own place or to live on my own, if you're willing to work remotely, there's a lot of opportunities in places like Ecuador and other places around the world. If you're looking to retire, Ecuador is definitely a place to check out. Not the only one, it's the one I picked first. I'm going to be checking some other ones out pretty soon too. I'm not sure this is where I'm going to put down roots, but I've been down here for 3.5 years, and on the whole, I find my quality of life and the way I feel down here is night and day from the way I feel in Canada. I feel like I'm a totally different person. I have more freedom down here, I have a better diet, it's easy to get around, things cost a lot less, and people make time to enjoy their lives, their families, their communities. These things for me, I can't put a price on, and that's to say nothing about the weather. Like, beautiful sunny day today. We're in early June. It's going to be nice in Canada as well, but in 6 months, it's still going to be sunny and warm down here, whereas in Canada, it's not going to be like that. It's going to be cold and dark and snowy and no thanks. So at the end of the day, pick what's important to you in terms of the quality of food, housing, and transportation. What do you really need in your life versus what you want in your life? What are you willing to pay for? And what trade-offs are you willing to accept? Any comments or questions, especially if you're an expat that moved out of the West and came down to the global South? I'd love to hear your stories in terms of your health, your quality of life, and just basically how satisfied are you living in your new home. Thanks for stopping by. Happy trails. See you out on the road next Saturday.